Hello artists, welcome to your night sky painting class. My name is Miss M, and in front of you, you should have your canvas, your cup of water, your large, your small brush, a paper towel, your blue, your black, and then your white. If you do not have all those materials, you are welcome to pause the video and come back to us whenever you're ready. But let's go ahead and get started. The first thing we're gonna do is we are gonna wash and dry our two brushes. So we're gonna wash and dry our two brushes like so. And then we're gonna take our large brush and dip it into the dark blue. We're gonna start with working on our background first before we build the trees, the birds, or the moon. We're gonna start with a lot of dark blue on the outer edges. So dark blue, big brush, and I want you to just kind of keep your brush moving, almost like you're making X's. And again, just kind of on the left side. Don't come in too much more than about this much. So I'm just kind of moving my brush, my dark blue, filling up that space. And I'm constantly moving it, almost making X's and just a bunch of sweeps where I'm flicking my brush. But a little bit more than a ruler's width, so a little bit more than a ruler's width on the side. Just kind of working it. Move that brush, make it look like you're making a bunch of X's. So move that. Kind of get into those white spots that you might have missed. And once you are done getting about this much paint on the left side, you can go ahead and paint the whole left side of your canvas as well. So you want to make sure all of the left side is painted as well, all the way up onto your canvas. Slowly filling up that space. Getting the edges filled out as well. And then the bottom part where it kind of curves over, be sure not to go further out than the front. So you want to kind of stop about that far out, same as the front part. I'm sure I can show that pretty easily. Oops, sorry about that. All right, and then same with the top part. Be sure just kind of curves over the same amount as the front. So we have that whole front area and then the bottom area, and be sure that you are getting into those white spots that you might have missed. Excellent. And then you're going to continue this idea on the right side as well. So again, not too much further out than a ruler's width. I'm going to come down, move that brush constantly, thinking about those X shapes too. And you'll curl your blue over to the top, to the bottom, and to the right this time. All those areas nice and covered. curls over. The right part. And the top part. It kind of curls over. So I have the left side, the right side. I'm constantly moving my brush. And then I am gonna kind of work on the top area. I'll make a line about this far from the top. So again, a little bit thicker than a ruler's width. And I'm gonna go in there and fill it in with the same idea. Like so. Get all that space nicely filled in. Move that brush. And then I will curl it over to the top and fill in all the space on the top part of my canvas that has not been filled in yet. Looks great. So you kind of have this N shape to your canvas. Again, double check your sides, the top and to the right part as well. If you want it to look a little bit darker, if you feel like your blue is a little bit too light, let it dry and then just kind of go over it a second time. So I'm going to kind of do that with mine. I feel like my blue is a little bit too light. So I'm going to go back to where I started from. And I'm going to give this blue a second coat. But if you feel like your blue is nice and dark enough, then in just a moment we will move on with So about the sides. But you're just kind of going in there and giving it a second coat to create a darker background. And once you're done with this, do not wash your brush. We'll still need a little bit of blue on our brush for the next step. And again, if you feel like the second coat is not dark enough, if you want your night sky a little bit darker, you can go back for a third coat. A lot of movement with our brush. Once you're done, again, do not clean your brush. You're going to go straight into your white paint, and you are going to start in the middle and just kind of have that same feel of just moving with your brush. And you're going to fill up all the space, and you're just going to constantly be going back to more white. And it's okay, again, it's okay if you have blue on your brush. You want to, at this point, have some blue on your brush. So just kind of keep on digging back into that white. And in just a moment, we're just kind of overlap over our blue a little bit. But move that brush, fill in all that white space, and slowly start covering up your canvas. And we'll even do some, actually we don't even have to worry about the bottom because it'll be painted all black later. So don't worry about doing any on the very bottom where it folds over on your canvas. Grab some of that green. I'm gonna wipe off some of the blue I've been catching on there. Okay. Move that brush around, and as you see, I'm kind of overlapping over my blue just a little bit. If you catch too much blue, you can always wipe it off on your paper towel, because we're kind of trying to get more of a medium blue at this point in the center. Kind of coming in on the left side, moving that brush, coming up a little bit, going to the right, and moving that brush. I'm going to cover up all that space. So all of that space in the middle should be covered. And this blue and white. Once you're done, I do want you to go ahead and wash and dry your big brush. And also give your paint a couple minutes to dry. So give your paint a couple minutes to dry before you start this next step. But the next step I'll talk about while I'm giving my canvas a little bit of time to dry. The next step, I am going to go in there with just white on my large brush, and I'm going to be jumping more up and down and kind of giving it more of like a spongy feel. So I'm going to go in there again with my white and kind of working around there with more of a spongy feel where I'm jumping up and down with my brush. So I go in there with the white. I'm just going to go in there and just kind of start pushing around. Working on top of this area a little bit more. And going into the blue areas a little bit more too. But at this point, I am going to be jumping around more with my brush. I'm going to go back and wipe off some of my paint and go back for more white. Kind of go over the blue area a little bit more too. But just kind of jumping around with your brush a little bit more at this time. Creating more of a spongy feel. Coming out. Kind of grab some of that green, huh? Again, I'm kind of working more in the middle area, going out to my blue a little bit, and jumping with my brush. Some more. Into that area a little bit more. out a little bit higher up, like so. All right. If you need some more brighter areas of white, you can kind of go back over them. Again, you're just kind of jumping with your brush. Once I'm done, I am going to kind of put my brushes maybe in your water because it'll just be in there for just a moment. But you are going to use your paper towel and kind of scrunch it up like so. And you're going to jump over mostly this area. So put your brushes in the water, scrunch up your paper towel, bring it to kind of like a nice ball at the end. And I'm going to just be using my paper towel as a way to kind of bring all those things together. I'm just jumping up and down, creating kind of like a spongier feel. Like so. Go up into your blue just a little bit. Like so. So kind of going up and over my area, so it looks more like a nice blend at this point. If you feel like you want to go back to more of your dark blue, you can very carefully find maybe a nice clean part of your paper towel, dip it into the blue, and then just kind of go back and kind of work those edges in a little bit more. And you're just again jumping. With your paper towel. So you've kind of created all that fun blend in the middle. Again, if you wanted to, you could go back over your blue. And be sure it doesn't look perfect. Be sure there's some areas where you're kind of coming in a little bit more with your dark blue, coming out a little bit more with your lighter blue areas. So be sure that you don't have this perfect kind of end shape. You want to kind of come in and out a little bit. Kind of laid out my background. There is a little bit of splatter painting here in just a moment too, so we'll do one more thing before we start building on top. And you're welcome to get a new paper towel if yours looks really messy, or find a nice area on your paper towel to kind of dry your brushes with. Get my brushes nice, wet, and dry. Get that nice kind of galaxy feel to it. Perfect. Looks so cool. Afterwards, I am gonna get my big brush and get it wet and dip it into a nice clean area of white. And I am gonna do some splatter painting. I do recommend being in an area that you don't mind getting dirty, and maybe even a practice run of this, because I got my brush wet, dipped into a nice area of white, and then I'm gonna flick back, and I'm about, 5 or 6 inches away from my canvas, and I'm just kind of flicking back like a mohawk. And you can add as much or as little of the splatter as you like so. And before we move on, we are gonna have to let our canvas dry for 5 minutes. So once you're done with your splatter, give your canvas some drying time. I'll put our video on pause for a little bit too, and we'll continue on in about 5 minutes, 10 minutes if you need so, where your canvas does not look so shiny anymore. All right, artists, we'll be back in just a moment. All right, artists, we're back, and hopefully your background is nice and dry. Our next step is going to be building our land, and then our trees, our birds, and our moon. So if you wanted to grab, let's start with our small brush and our black paint. We are going to be building the line for where our land stops. So I'm going to come up just a little bit from the left. I'm going to come down. It does peak a little bit here. It comes down again, and then back up again. So I'm going to create the line for the land. Once I am done, ooh, excuse me, I'm gonna grab my big brush and my black paint, and I'm gonna paint all the space underneath this line that I've made, including the left side, the right side, and on the very bottom of my canvas. I'm just kind of following that line. You can always drag this side of your brush to kind of keep it nice and clean. Like so. And then we're gonna also kind of turn it over and kind of turn that line over and then paint all that space. On the side where it kind of curves over. And then to the right as well, where it looks like the land curves over, I'm gonna make a line. And then I'll paint all the space underneath it. And then the very bottom of my canvas, it's gonna be all black. So get a nice solid black land before we build some trees on it. And this is with my big brush that I'm filling in. So I did my line work with my small brush, and I filled in all that space underneath with my bigger brush. I'll show you the sides. Ooh. And the other side, like so. Looks great. All right, once I'm done, I'm gonna go ahead and just wash and dry my big brush. I'm gonna go back to my small brush. I am gonna start building my trees from left to right. I'm always kind of comparing their height, seeing which one's taller, which one's shorter. It kind of goes from tall, medium to short, and then again short, medium to tall for the heights of these trees. I'm just gonna start off with my small brush, and I'm gonna start here, kind of over to the left of my land, and I'm gonna build a line. It's a little bit of a curve to it. It's gonna have to be perfectly straight. It kind of goes all the way to the top. So I've built that first line for my tree. I am gonna go back in the bottom part where it kind of is a little bit thicker. I'm gonna go back and just kind of add a little bit more to the right side, add a little bit more to the left side. Just gonna slowly work in and make the tree just a little bit thicker on the bottom. Just be sure it's a nice flow, like so. And then you can always drag your brush, just kind of clean it up, make it a nice solid black where you don't see any blue or white peeking through. Once you're done, you are going to start a little bit higher up from here, and you're going to start with your branches. You're going to start with your branches. So for branches, I am going to use just a little bit more black, and I am going to kind of create some branches going to the left side and the right side. Don't worry too much about the bottom part. You want to come up a little bit higher. I'm going to come up. I'm just going to create these lines like so. And even some of the lines kind of break off a little bit. But see how they're kind of coming up and then over. Have some that are a little bit more straight. But almost at a diagonal. You don't want them to come straight out. You want them to kind of come out as a diagonal. Go in there. Some that are longer, some that are shorter. And I'm barely pushing on my brush. I'm not pushing too hard on my brush. Again, I'm kind of coming up and out at a diagonal. Breaking some off until kind of like a Y shape. Going all the way up with these lines. And there are also some on the left side. Again, avoid the very bottom part. Come up and out. Have some breaking off into the Y shape as well. And then you'll kind of continue that idea for the other trees. I'll kind of go from left to right. Work between the branches. You can have some kind of coming from the left and to the right. Go back and maybe add some longer lines, like so. Get a little bit further. All right, and let's go in there and make that second tree. You definitely want to leave room between each tree so you have room to kind of spread out with your branches. So I'm going to come over just a little bit, build a line. So just a line. That's your medium line. You don't want to go too dark because you'll have your moon up here, so be sure not to go all the way. And then once I was done creating that line, I'm going to come down here and make this bottom part a little bit thicker by going out on each end. Kind of coming up. Coming out on the left, on the right. Building that second line. And then you can go in there and make the branches kind of how we did before. Avoid the bottom area. Just kind of come up and out. I'm barely pushing on my brush. I'm gonna work my way up. So a little diagonal lines. If you feel like your paint is getting dry, add a little bit of water to your brush. Pat it off onto your paper towel 6 or 7 times, and then just kind of go over your black, or just add more black to your brush. So just kind of coming out on either side. Coming up at a diagonal. Go all the way up. And the top of this one, it does have kind of like a peak. Kind of comes out on either side. A little bit that way. So let me kind of go up a little bit. Kind of comes down on the right, comes down on the left. Just a little area. It's a little bit of a peak. Kind of go in there and fill it in a little bit more. Like so. So I went up, came down, came down, came down. My third one is going to be my shortest one. Same idea. Leave a little bit of space between each one, make a line. About that tall. Go in there and make this bottom part a bit thicker and kind of work your way up. Then I'm going to start going up. So to avoid the bottom part, start going up and out. My brush is getting dry, so I'm going to get a little bit wet. Maybe add a little bit more black to it. Go in there with more branches. Coming up and out to a diagonal. Then this one does have a little bit of a peak too, where it comes up, then back down. Here it comes down as well. That Y shape. we're going to leave some room in the middle for birds, but we'll do the same thing on the right side where we're going to be working with our tall tree first. That one's going to go almost all the way up, almost all the way up. And if you're still working on your trees, once I'm done showing you all 6 trees, you're welcome to kind of push pause on the video. Just be sure to follow the same idea of building a line and making the bottom part thicker. And then coming up into a diagonal for your branches. Leaving a little bit of space between each tree so you can build out. Breaking some off into a Y shape. Don't forget about the branches that are kind of going off to the right of your canvas. This one does not have one of those peaks at the top. Just gonna leave it as is. Leave a little space. Medium one. Make the bottom part a little bit thicker. Work your way up. And then I'm gonna go in there and make some branches. I think maybe I went a little bit too far down, but that's okay. Build up a little bit more. Coming up into a diagonal, coming out with your branches. If your brush gets dry, get it wet. Tap on the paper towel. Going for a little bit more black. A little bit too much. I'll let that dry for a moment and then I'll go back over it. Tree. I think it's still too wet. I might go back after a little bit, mess with it a little bit more. Okay, and last tree. It's gonna be your shortest one. Leave a little bit of space. And I'm sorry, this one does have a little bit of a peak, so I'm gonna come down. Come down. Little area. Your lines do not have to be perfect. It does look like this one's a little bit taller than this one, so I'm going to come up a little bit further. Make the bottom part a little bit thicker. Your lines don't have to be perfectly straight. Just make sure that the bottom part is a little bit thicker. I'm going to start up a little bit higher. You, of course, want to leave some nice middle space. Coming out a little bit further. And again, if I get done before you do, please push pause, go back after you're done with your branches and just kind of take a step back and see if you want to fill in any spots or clean up any spots. And at the top of this one, there is a little bit of a peak as well. Go make that upside down V shape. Come up a little bit. Come out a little bit as well. Perfect. If you wanted to go back and clean anything else up. This time you can work on your birds. I would maybe even do a practice run on your paper towel or piece of paper, because birds can be pretty hard. They are usually in the shape of a V, with the wingspan just a little bit further out. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in this painting. I'm going to start with the first one here to the left, and I am very much on the tippy toes of my brush. So I'm going to come in a little bit that way, come out a little bit that way. So I have that V shape with a little bit of a curve on the wings. I'm going to come up a little bit further up. Looks like this one's about the same size, but a little bit more curvy wings. This one looks very much so like a V, and it's here to the right, and it's kind of veering here to the right as well. So you have that shape. And you have 2 mini ones further in the back. So I'm going to come down a little bit. And these are minis, so they're further in the back. So that one has a V shape as well. And this one, its wings are a little bit more spread out, and it's really small as well. So you have those birds right there. And then once you are done, you can wash and dry your small brush. You're going to build your moon. So I'm going to wash and dry my small brush. Again, if you wanted to go back and touch anything up with your trees, your branches, take a step back to kind of see everything, see if you wanted to change any of your branches, your birds, whatever you like. Up here, I'm going to build almost a full circle. I'm just putting white on my brush, and it's not bigger than a quarter size, so I'd rather start off small and get bigger if I need to. But you almost see the full circle, but do my best to almost make a full circle. So I have that shape up there. Make sure you guys see it. And then I'm going to go in there and paint it all white with my small brush again. I'm going to fill it in. Kind of moving my brush all around up here. If you feel like you can still see a lot of blue underneath, wait for your white to dry and go back and give it a second coat so it's a little bit brighter. I think that's what I would do on mine. And there is a little bit of gray in there too. So once you're done with your white and getting it as bright as you want and getting your circle in there, as nice and neat as you like, let it dry. And I'm going to add a dot of black to my brush. I didn't even wash it. It's the black and white working together. I'm going to pat it off on my paper towel just a little bit. And I am going to go in there and just kind of sweep a little bit here and there, a little bit of gray areas. So also just kind of moving it all around, adding a little bit of texture with some gray in my moon. You can always go back and maybe outline it in white just a little bit so the outside edge is a little bit more bright. I'll work that in too. If you feel like you put too much gray in there, let it dry and then go back and add more white in there. But again, we worked with our background, some blues, went in there, added white, used our paper towel to kind of sponge on there, did some splatter paint. We built our land, we built our trees up at different heights, out, up and out for our branches, and then we added some birds, and of course our moon. Thank you so much, artists, for joining us. I hope you had a great time painting. And as always, thank you so much for supporting this studio. And I hope you have a beautiful day.